Okay, right. Hello and welcome to a new live stream. Very much, grateful for everybody who joined last week. So very good. And we already have our first person here. So from Mature Student Motivator. So hello and welcome. Good day from Cornwall, Martin, and everyone. Fantastic. It's Cornwall's a lovely place of the UK, and can't wait to visit once again. So thank you for your comment. As ever, please don't forget to post your questions in the comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And also tell me, whereabouts you're from, where you're tuning in from, and also, whether you're a teacher, a student, and that sort of thing. But as you know, every Saturday, 1 p.m., we hold our live stream now. And so it's great to have this started once again. But anyway, what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce you to a new tutor on my live stream today. And his name is Marco. He's tuning in from the wonderful place of Mexico. I guess, I'm not going to pronounce it. But we also have Chivalrous Tube here. So thank you very much. Good afternoon. Where are you from, Chivalrous Tube? I know you're a regular viewer, so tell me whereabouts you're from. That would be great. Right, so I'm going to bring in Marco and say hello. Everyone say hello to Marco. And here we are. So, hello.
Hello, Martin, and hello, everyone. Good afternoon from that side of the planet, and good morning from this side of the world.
Great. Well, we've got someone who's coming from tuning in from Iceland, and it's great to have Chivalrous Tube here. So welcome. Right. So you're from Mexico. So maybe could you perhaps tell me about yourself and how you got into teaching on Preply at all?
Yes, well, I think as many others, we were pushed because of the pandemic.
Hmm.
And well, this boosted the opportunity to give lessons online. It was a slow transition, but it was sort of accelerated by this situation. And I was tutoring first, live, I mean, in a classroom with people, with students. And eventually, the institute where I was teaching closed because of this situation. And I was having lessons online, but they were in a group.
Hmm.
And I found it was so difficult to manage a group while having online lessons that I decided to basically forfeit about I forfeited this institute. I quit,
Hmm.
and then I tried to search for a different opportunity to teach. And I was aware that there were online lessons, one-on-one, and I thought it would be better to teach that way because it's mostly focused on a specific need rather than a group need, and this
Mm.
is somewhat difficult. And well, basically, I googled it, and I ran into this website called Preply, and then I applied for it. And after some weeks, well, I got into Preply, and I recorded my video, and well, I found myself having my first lesson a week after I was registered in this website.
Wow.
So yeah.
So you had your first student 1 week after registering on Preply, is that right?
Yes, it was funny because in the beginning I was searching for queries in
Hmm.
the section that is designed for that. Um, and I was replying all of them. I wasn't aware they were already or they already found a tutor. But
Hmm.
anyways, I did my best to, to apply for them, and I got an answer. And this answer was my first student, and he told me, yes, I will have some lessons with you. He
Uh-huh.
applied. We had our first trial lesson, and then he became my first regular student. So after 2 years, he's still with me, and well, what a story.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And so, you mentioned 2 years. So you've been on Preply now for 2 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, almost 3 years.
Wow.
My first student started to have lessons around the first week of October.
Mm,
So yeah, it will be almost 3 years here. So 2 years,
gosh,
time flies
it
to
does.
me.
It certainly does.
Yes.
Time flies when you're having fun, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, thank you for ever so much for joining me today. I've got your profile here. If I may, I'd like to
Yeah,
share it.
please, be my guest.
So, if I just zoom in very quickly, yeah, you've taught over 3,000 lessons. That's an amazing achievement, to be honest.
Yes, absolutely. I think when, as you rightly said, when you're having fun, you don't feel the time, the time, how the time passes by. And
Mm,
well, I think what I do is more than a job, like something that I do for fun because
yeah.
or because of passion.
Hmm.
I'm really passionate about teaching, about sharing, um, and also about learning because when you're tutoring, you're not just teaching, you're also learning from your students.
Yes, that's true. There's an expression that comes to mind, when one teaches to learn, or something similar to, I'm paraphrasing possibly, but
Yes.
yeah, it's quite a nice expression to have. So, as you mentioned, within your profile, um, it, almost 3 years have gone by so quickly. And um, what would you recommend? When you're setting up your profile on Preply, what sort of recommendations do you have for new tutors?
Yeah, this is something that I was puzzled at first because I didn't have any guidance, but now that I
Hmm.
can provide it to new tutors, well, I feel totally delighted. First look very professional, but without looking so serious. I
Hmm.
mean, not the typical angry elementary school teacher face. You have to look friendly, inviting,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, professional at the same time. Don't
Yes.
use colorful backgrounds, but rather
Hmm.
neutral colored backgrounds. Gray, white will do fine.
Hmm.
Your attire, your clothes should look also professional.
Mm.
Also, I mean, if you have a Hawaiian T-shirt, don't use it. But something that looks casual but also looks fresh,
Hmm.
looks or makes your appearance look good.
Yeah.
And about your video, well, record a video as many times as possible until
Hmm.
you get the desired outcome, and
Yep.
you will make lots of mistakes as I did. The video that I recorded by this time, well, I did it about 10 times.
Wow.
I was
Wow. So.
stuttering a lot. I forgot words. I was suddenly laughing in the middle of it. So, yes, if you have a written prompt that you can
Hmm.
read,
Hmm.
try to use it just to memorize the most important parts of it
Yes.
and mention what your value added. Because as many others, you're teaching a language that
Hmm.
lots of people will learn. You have
Mm.
lots of competition, of course, but what makes the difference in your tutoring sessions? What's going to give them or what's the special thing about your tutoring sessions?
I think you've kind of mentioned a very important point, actually, because online tutoring, particularly through sites like Preply or other platforms, um, it's very saturated. There's a lot of tutors or those that want to go and tutor online. And you have to try and make yourself different. You have to try and, you mentioned about the sort of value that you add, and I think it's so important, if I may, to offer something that no other tutor could offer. Bring in something unique to your profile, or bring in something unique to your lessons. Um, is crucial. It's so vital. What sort of things would you recommend when it comes down to making your profile quite unique or different to other general teachers on a platform?
Okay, I've seen many tutors. They are prone to write the whole
Hmm.
resume, but well, I wouldn't recommend that. Try to keep it brief,
Hmm.
straight to the point, and remark those parts that you're adding to the value of your lessons. I mean, if I got 3 certificates, well, that would be good to know, but also what makes the difference among other
Mm.
tutors. Maybe I'm using more interactive materials. Maybe I will adapt to a student need. Um, Maybe I will carry the lesson according to what the student says, or
Hmm.
whatever things. So it's important to keep it brief, no more than 3 paragraphs, I would say, and
Hmm.
no more
Hmm.
than 3 lines per paragraph. If you want
Yes.
to extend a little bit beyond that, it's fine, as long as you
Uh-huh.
don't make it too long to read. The attention span on the internet is quite short, so I
Yep.
would say no more than 20 seconds of reading.
Yes.
That would be fine.
Yeah, I can see here. I've got your profile here. Now let me just see if I've got this in shot. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. About the tutor, it's very short and concise and bullet points. Quick, easy, consumable. I guess, as you mentioned, very short attention spans nowadays. Um, and let's have a quick look at your sort of subject. So yeah, I can
Yes,
see
sure.
here, on Preply, you can choose a variety of different subjects to teach, of course. Um, and of course, you've got a respectable 33 reviews, 5 out of 5, which is it can be very difficult to achieve such a good rating on a platform like Preply, because it's entirely up to the students to review your profile at the end of the day.
Yes, one of the things that are helpful, and this is our recommendation for other tutors. This is part of what I give as a value to my lessons, is to be empathetic with them.
Mm,
So I try to adapt to their personalities, because some are really cheerful, and I encourage them, and I laugh a lot with them. Some others are very serious and focused on learning, so I keep it serious, and I try to stay on the line.
mhm,
And well, I try to adapt to that, and whenever I find they like something, they are searching for something, I adapt that into my lessons.
mhm,
And well, that's what makes them to be so focused and so engaged during the
mm,
lessons. And they always say something nice, and I think
mhm.
that's well, it's kind to and it's nice to receive that that feedback when
Yeah.
you're giving lessons, and when you're doing something you love.
Yeah. I think personalizing lessons, responding to students is so important nowadays. Responding and reacting to what students want to do, or what they're interested in. And if you can maintain that curiosity, it motivates them very, um, you know, without any problems. At ease, I guess. It's quite easy to um, motivate them once you know a bit more about the students. Um, right, I've got a comment here from a fellow subscriber here on YouTube, and she says, or he says, my uniqueness is that I'm a nervous wreck inside with little confidence. I have to act confident, but I managed to pull off 8 lessons this week with 2 returning students. So, what sort of advice would you have for someone who is naturally, because for me, believe it or not, I'm when I was much younger, I was very, very shy, quite nervous, quite quiet, but I kind of found my feet within teaching, and my confidence in teaching. What sort of advice would you have for someone who has, is lacking confidence with teaching or online tutoring?
Okay, well, a lot of advices about that because I think at some point in our lives, all of us were shy or still are. But well, as I watched in a movie, and it. This is just for the laughs. Pretend you're seeing a naked person. That maybe will make you
Hmm.
laugh. But no, on a more serious tone, pretend you're talking to a friend,
Mm,
and I think that boosts your confidence because yeah, you will try to perfect yourself from the inside out,
mhm,
because you want to give the most perfect trial lesson. Yeah,
mm,
the main point of that is landing a regular student. But when you do that, pretend you're talking to a friend.
mhm,
Be confident about what you're doing. Mentalize yourself into thinking that you're going to do right. You're going to be amazing. You're going to be the best.
mm,
And well, from time to time, sip some water and breathe deeply before you start the lesson.
mhm.
And well, let's get that student. That's the thing I would recommend to do.
Yeah, and apologies. Yeah, she did say I'm a she. So yeah,
Oh, sorry.
she. No,
Yes.
no, no. It's okay. It's all right. My fault. Now, yeah, I think it is important, and knowing that you've pulled off 8 lessons or taught 8 lessons, and you got 2 students that are returning, I think that needs to be celebrated or acknowledge that what you're doing has some benefit. People are actually going to book lessons with you, which is very important. And knowing and realizing that not everything will be good 100% of the time, and realizing that, well, what you're doing has some significance for those students that book with you. Anyway, well, I'm going to pose a different question now. What's the most difficult challenge you faced on Preply?
Well, this is a very interesting question because I faced lots of difficulties. But the most challenging one was teaching a 5-year-old kid
Mm,
because I'm used to teach teenagers
mm,
and adults, but kids, this is my first. And I got a query about teaching a 5-year-old toddler. And I thought at first, what should I do here? How do I teach a toddler that is just learning the language?
mm,
Okay, the focus will be on vocabulary and some activities, physical activities, I mean. And well, I went from staying on the chair the whole time
mm.
to stand up and jump and run in the camera. So I felt like sort of a clown, and yeah, I was like, and I was sweating at the end of the lesson. I was really
Wow.
tired. It was energy draining, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it was so satisfying to see that kid laughing and repeating the words that I
Mm.
taught. So, and I brought some plushies. I had to act the voices for those stuffed animals, and
Yeah, yeah.
well, it was tiring
Like
for my voice too.
puppets and that sort of thing. Yeah.
And he was
Wow.
laughing the whole time, and he learned a lot. So
That's
I
great.
think that was it was also rewarding. Yeah, it was
Mm.
challenging, every time I had that lesson, I was like really nervous. So I would like, what would I do today? Okay, we're going to learn
Hmm.
numbers, and numbers. I'm going to bring and I got some stuffed animals right here,
Yeah.
and I used them. But he grew fond of of some teeth that I have here.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it was funny because it's just a set of teeth with gums.
All right. So like these
Yeah,
joke teeth or
exactly.
something like that.
And it was its favorite, so I used it in almost every lesson.
So
Yeah,
so
so it was challenging. Yeah,
so would you
teaching a kid is
say that,
challenging.
well, teaching kids particularly and trying to teach kids is really challenging. And the youngest that I've taught on Preply, 8 years old. Um, and these kids are being brought up, not being taught two languages, their first language and their English as their second language, but they're learning three languages. So these 8-year-old kids go to a trilingual school, and they're learning Arabic, they're learning English, and they're learning French. And they can switch in between the languages at 8 years old. And I found it quite challenging to do anything that kind of engages them. They're very sweet and everything, but anything language focused can be a bit of a challenge, when it comes down to when someone's English is so strong, or whatever second language they're studying. And I ended up doing sort of what we call like CLIL activities, within English language teaching. So content language integrated learning, or sort of teaching subjects, or something about science or something about the wildlife, or some topic like that, to get them interested and for them to learn something because their English was so good. But I think props are so valued when you're teaching kids online. And I have very few props to teach kids.
Yes, but here, well, what I did was to improvise basically, and I would recommend tutors improvising from time to time.
Hmm.
Well, the life has itself taught me how to improvise in
Mm,
every circumstance possible. So I did the same. I was improvising.
mm,
I had this student first, and I was searching for toys or things that
mm,
would be kid friendly, and I came up with that idea.
mm,
And well, to keep them focused, because having a kid's attention in a on a digital platform is difficult.
mm. It
Um,
is, yeah,
yeah,
it
so
is.
having them for more than an hour, I wouldn't recommend that. Maybe 30 minutes would be good,
Hmm. Hmm.
but with just enough information for them to absorb, because they are like
Mm.
sponges. Kids
Yes.
are really dexterous in absorbing information and then giving it back,
Mm.
well, proving to you that they have learned everything you taught. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
you can be confident about those kids learning a lot because
Mm.
they do.
Yeah. Well, I've got a question here, and thank you, Chivalrous Tube. Uh, um, Chivalrous Tube said, "I learnt three languages as a kid: Icelandic, Polish, and English. So quite unique languages there: Icelandic and Polish, and English. And it said, I even had to learn a little Danish in high school. So that's great." Mature student here. She said, yes, I had an inquiry from a parent with two children who she described as polyglots. They spoke four languages and were both under 10 years. So I kindly suggested she try a more experienced tutor. Um, yeah. Right. I've got a question here from Zimkitha. Um, and they say, how do you know when you're ready to let go of a student?
Oh, well, that's a good question to ask. Well, first, if that student is only applying for a test,
Mm.
and you review everything together, because you have to dedicate at least a couple of lessons to review all the materials, everything you went through. And if you think that student will achieve their marks, well, then it's ready to go. But other than that, well, depends on their goals. Some want to travel. You can review materials. It's always important to review materials, not only learning and that's it.
Mm.
It's not something you have to dispose of. You have to review everything. If you can do some simulation tests for this purpose, you can do them.
Mhm.
I think it will come in hand, but that will give you a hint whether you can let go that student off, or you have to keep it. You have to keep them.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, a test would be important. Well, sometimes they do that by themselves. They say, well, I won't be able to book more lessons because I have to travel.
Mhm.
Lots of circumstances may happen, uh, or they won't give you reasons at all. They will just cancel the remaining
Yeah.
lessons. And well, yeah, it's sort of sad to see that that ominous email that says your student will not continue lessons with you anymore. But yeah,
Mm.
life goes on, and
It
well,
certainly
at some
does.
point
Yeah.
you will receive new students, and you have to be really happy about what you did with that student, because
Mhm.
in the end you helped them.
True. That's so true. Now, one thing that you mentioned was about testing or that sort of thing. Particularly, for me, I kind of specialize with IELTS preparation or exam preparation courses on Preply, and I do a little bit online privately as well. But um, once the students have achieved that sort of grade that they're trying to attain, then it's natural for them to say, well, thank you ever so much. I got the grade. Hopefully, they leave you a nice review as well to say, yeah, he was great or she was great. Um, and it has a natural ending once that student has achieved that band or grade that they want, and they move on to pastures new. For those students who tend to just book every week or a couple of times a week, and they continue. I did have a student from Poland who I was tutoring for about a year and a half, and we used to have 2 lessons a week. And she was probably one of my longest standing students, and it was so sad to have that. And she did send me an email. Actually, she said, I'm now going to finish my studies of English. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve, and it was a bit sad to say, well, thank you, keep in touch, and uh, that was a natural ending. But I take your point when students don't communicate, and maybe there's a sort of an issue with face, I guess. Losing face if they say I can't because of my circumstances, or there's something private and they don't want to share and they just finish. But it's a good point that you made.
Yes, we tend to blame ourselves. Like,
Mm.
what did I do wrong? What did I fail in? So no, don't think that maybe there are other circumstances. I have had students that have told me beforehand, sorry, I ran out of money and I need that money
Mm.
to
Mm.
survive, basically,
Of
to pay my
course.
bills.
Yeah.
I have other projects at work, so I'm not able to continue. Where I'm not going to take lessons anymore because I want to focus in other studies or in my college.
Mm.
So there are lots of reasons. It's not just the fact that the tutor didn't satisfy the student's needs, but yeah, there might be other factors in.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I've got a question here. Something that I tend to ask other tutors is, have you met any of your students, online students, face to face?
Yes, it was an amazing experience. My first student, well, it's funny because my first student is the one that I've met first,
Hmm.
and they were really happy about meeting in person. We had a long conversation. They traveled to Mexico. They were staying for a vacation, and we got to meet in a restaurant, and they were really happy about that. And we were sharing, some of our experiences as we were really acquainted, if
Hmm.
I can say so. We just had a chat, and that's it. And the second student that I met face to face, I tend to tell her she is my favorite student, and she says, "Well, you're my favorite tutor, so how I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't come to Mexico to meet you."
Mm.
And then, we were hanging around lots of places, and I'm proud of her because she started from scratch. Basically, she wasn't able to say even hello
Right.
in Spanish. And 2 years since then, she's able to hold a conversation up for more than an hour, or
Wow.
as I saw in that day, for more than a day. So
Yeah.
I was really surprised, and she was getting acquainted with the lingo, the street lingo, I mean,
Mm.
with some slang.
Mm.
So yes, it's satisfying when you see your students grow and develop themselves in
Mm.
their skills. So
Mm.
yeah, it was an amazing experience. And if
That's
you ever meet some of your students face to face,
mm.
believe me, it will be an amazing experience.
Wow. I haven't had that opportunity yet to meet any of my tutors. Oh, sorry, tutors. Any of my students face to face just yet, and it yeah, it would be kind of, I guess, a bit peculiar, because there's that um, remoteness, I guess, digital remoteness. But I guess it kind of comes through, and then you can start to plan. If you go and visit places, then you have an opportunity to go and meet students that you've taught from those places as well. But yeah.
Yes, and you can feel the bond you created with them when they are starting to do things for you. The first experience that I had with a student, and that student is from Germany, they were really happy about the lessons, and they told me, "Thank you for so much, Marco, and I
Yeah.
want you to receive a gift that I will send you from Germany."
Mm.
And after 2 months, I think I received this package was stuffed with chocolates and
Oh
candy
wow.
from Germany,
Oh,
and
amazing.
a book, and yeah, it was amazing. So
Mm.
uh, students can be really grateful if you give them the chance
Yes.
um, to be themselves, because
Yeah.
maybe as tutors we might think of this environment as something strict, like you have to pay
Mm.
attention and stay quiet. I'm some sort of a friendly tutor in regards to that. Like, okay, if you want to take a snack, take it. I've
Mhm.
been in your side before, and I know starving can make you stay out of focus. So
Sure.
yeah, have a snack, drink some water. You're in your house. In the end, you're at
Yeah,
home. Feel at home.
of
So
course.
yeah, if this wo- if this is a classroom is virtual, in the end
Mhm.
it's not a physical classroom. So there are no
Yeah.
restrictions here, but just pay attention to what I have to say, and that's it. And they are laid back, and in the end they absorb more information than if I was strict with them.
Yes.
So it
There's
helps.
always that there's always that idea, you go and watch a movie about someone's a role of a teacher, and they have that sort of um, teacher um, that idea of a teacher front and center in the classroom, dictating when to speak, when not to speak, and it can be a bit uh, of a wrong impression for some to think, okay, a teacher should be quite organized and strict and just focus on what they're teaching, and any sort of um, student talking is unsuitable. But um, it, for me personally, the best teachers that I remember of from my school years were those that were um, completely the opposite of that sort of stereotype of a teacher. Someone who's quite calm and easygoing, quite natural, um, allowing things to happen within reason. Um, and yeah, it's quite an interesting point. The role of a teacher, and I guess the role of a teacher kind of changes depending on the circumstances, doesn't it? It doesn't mean for someone to be top down or that sort of thing. It could be mutual between student and teacher.
Yes, absolutely. Th- there is this tutor thing of teaching them how to go from A to B, and this is the
Hmm.
way you have to do it. But let's remember, well, if you're teaching a language, grammar, it only makes the language make sense. But other than that, wouldn't be the tool to
Yes,
the main tool. I
yeah,
mean, the languages created by themselves.
of course.
Through time, we learn
Mm,
to say things, to incorporate new vocabulary, and you don't have to be so strict about that because
mm,
I've seen other tutors' experiences in which they say, "Well, I was trying to teach this student how to do this, and they didn't want to," and I was like really, really serious about that. But the student,
mm,
in the end, well, didn't feel like they had to take lessons with me, and
mm.
they decided to choose a different tutor. So don't be so strict about that. The language is flexible by
It is,
itself,
yeah.
so you can teach lots of tools. Remember, there are lots of ways to introduce ourselves. You don't
Mm.
just have to say my name is. You can say I am.
Yeah.
This is what people call me. So a lot of ways you can use to introduce yourself, and this
Yeah.
applies for many languages. So
Mm,
yeah, there are lots of ways and shortcuts. Even some students learn better that way. I've seen some students that say, "Okay, I know how to say this. Okay, you're right, but we have to correct a little bit of what you're saying,
mhm,
and we can
mm,
use that.
mm,
But then I will teach you how to say this in different ways because
mhm,
you have to know, you have to be able to
mm,
discern when a person is saying that, because you will
mm,
be puzzled at first, like why he's saying I am instead of saying my name is. So
mm,
you have to give them room to think
mm.
and to ponder those questions.
That's so true. It's so true. Actually, I'm reminded of a video that I watched yesterday, and it was from a popular YouTuber in the UK. His name's Bold and Bankrupt. So he's bold,
Okay.
and he did become bankrupt once, but now he's a sort of a travel YouTuber. He travels to different places, and currently, he was traveling from Peru up to Venezuela, and he's heading up to Mexico. And I watched one of his old videos yesterday, and he was talking about language and learning a language. And he did say, he tried to learn Russian, and he learned the alphabet, he learned the grammar, and he was unable to make that progress, that step from um, knowing about the language, the grammar, the the bare bones, I guess, of the language. And then he made a decision to completely forget about studying grammar because he'd been studying grammar for a year and a half, and he decided to focus solely on vocabulary and and then he realized that actually the vocabulary is more important than the grammar itself. You end up, and for me, I've got a similar approach when it comes down to learning a bit more about languages or that sort of thing. Grammar is fine, and I did go through a phase when I was first starting to learn Korean of just learning the grammar. And I suppose at the beginning you need to learn maybe the bare basics of the grammar, but once you've got a sort of a working knowledge of the grammar, or you have an awareness of the grammar, when people speak, they don't use the grammar as it's not as central as one would expect. And learning the vocabulary, learning the phrases that you're trying to express, and focusing on meaning what you're trying to mean is more important than what kind of glues the language together, which could be the grammar in some regards.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I tell my students, just imagine the language is like your body, and the grammar
Yeah,
is your skeleton because it's
yeah,
holding everything together. It makes you able to stand up and to stand upright. So
yeah,
yes, and other thing that I'm used to say is, how did you learn to speak your own language?
yes, of
Well, your
course.
mom and your dad were telling you, say mama, say papa, say whatever thing.
Yeah,
You were blabbering those words.
you were. Yeah,
They weren't explaining you. They
no,
didn't explain you. Okay, this is the present tense of this
yes.
verb, and you have to say it like this. No, you were just repeating and listening.
Mm,
So this is how
mhm.
it works.
It certainly
And
does. Yeah.
yeah, and then you can explain through grammar. Even though I love it because I love
Mm,
grammar,
mm,
I'm not focused into teaching a language with grammar,
mm,
especially if the student wants to learn or wants to hold conversations with someone,
mhm,
or wants to travel and be able to request something or order
mm,
food or
yeah.
whatever thing. Yeah, I think it's important to give them such hints or some tips about that. Well, this applies for students, but let's remember, Preply is not made up by language tutors. It's also
Mm,
made up of different tutors that are teaching music and other subjects. So it's important to them too to give them room to think, to learn, and to
mm,
make mistakes. Making
yeah.
mistakes while learning a skill, it's absolutely normal.
Yes,
It's
of
not
course.
something they should be ashamed of,
No.
because there are lots of students that are like, oh, sorry, I'm afraid of making this mistake. No,
Mm,
don't be afraid. I won't judge you. You
no.
you you are able to do that, because at some point I will. I'm a human, so I'm
Mm,
not perfect,
of
right? So
course.
you have to be understanding,
Yeah.
and well, I will be understanding with you.
Interesting point. I'm just going to divert very quickly because we've had quite a few people comment.
Yeah.
So we've got Fajar here. So hello, Mr. Martin. Hello, Fajar. Thank you ever so much for joining. Where are you tuning in from? Let me know in the comments. Again, he's doing online courses. He's learning through online platforms. He says it's the same as like learning in class, because a vision learning in general is like face to face. I guess there's an element of truth in that. I guess learning online is as much as being a social activity, much like learning in
Yeah.
class. Okay, mature student motivator. She said, "I like to be pupil centered as much as possible." So yeah, giving the students the opportunity to find their feet, their confidence, and that sort of thing. And we got Amara Osama. So hello, thank you for the session. Thank you, Amara, for joining in today's live stream. So if anyone does have any questions, please let me know in the comments, or if you've got any questions for Marco, please ask your questions in the comments. It'd be great to have them join you, and for
Yes,
Marco
yes.
to.
If you guys want to know how's the weather here, well, I will answer that beforehand. It's amazing. So kind of boosts your mood,
Yeah,
and yeah, well, it's a beautiful day. I'm seeing the
perfect.
sunrise right now, so
It's kind of grey and murky in England. I'm just looking out the window, and it's grey, it's cloudy, it's murky. It's not nice. Not as nice as Mexico, I guess.
yes, yes, totally. And some other thing that I'd like to say is when you get to meet a student first time, do some sort of small talk that
Mhm.
will boost their confidence. They will be really encouraged to have more lessons with you.
Mm,
And just with any student, you can do that. You
yeah.
don't know if they had a bad day,
Mhm.
or they are going through rough situations, that might help a little bit.
Mhm.
So we may act as counselors sometimes, but don't extend that too much, because remember, you're teaching, you're tutoring. So, but yeah, that might help a little bit.
Right. Well, first question for Marco is: can I trade Marco the Northern Lights for the weather? It's snowing here. I guess.
Yeah, sure. I'd like to see the Northern Lights at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be freezing, but for sure it's an amazing show to see.
I once saw the aurora, the Northern Lights, when I went to Finland on holiday with my parents, and I think I was about 19 or 20 years old. I must have been 20 years old, and beautiful, the sort of the green, bluey haze that's coming over from the sky. Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was another question that I just saw that
Yeah.
asked if I've been friends. Oh,
Hmm.
yes. Is it advisable? Okay, it's up to you. Yeah, they ended up. I ended up being friends with two of them. Actually, the two that I met. Is it advisable? Oh, well, it's up to you. There are some trade-offs. I mean, you have more confidence with them, but at the same time, they will be more confident by canceling lessons if they need to.
Hmm.
But just in case of an emergency or something you have to
Mm.
do, well, do you have the same confidence to say that?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's good at some point, but don't let that interfere in their goals or
Hmm.
yours, because the classroom is a different thing. So
Yes.
we're friends, yeah, here we're friends, but here we have to keep it professional. I have to teach you. You have to pay attention. We're not going to
Mm.
divert our attention in
Mm.
different things or in gossip. But but yeah, you have to stay focused on what you have to do.
True. And okay, thank you ever so much. Great tips and advice, Marco. Thank you. The weather is in very far west Cornwall, so that's southwest of far southwest of
Yes.
England. Quite pleasant today. No gale force winds today, so no no real strong winds at all, which is great. Right, I've got a question here from Amara, and they say, just completed my CELTA, so initial English language teaching certificate. I'm not sure how to find students online. What sort of tips would you have, Marco, for this?
First, you have lots of tools to promote yourself online. First, you have your social media profiles.
Hmm.
I would use that in the first place. I would share them. I would search for focused learning groups. I
Hmm.
mean, I would search in Facebook, on Facebook, for example, a group that is learning the language you're teaching,
Hmm.
and I will start to post in the comments, because,
Mm.
well, might seem like spam, but it might help a little bit, of course. If you got Twitter or the Instagram or TikTok, whatever
Hmm.
thing, use those resources in your favor so you can promote search for the queries that appear in the platform you're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean just Preply. You might be teaching in a different platform, and there
Mm-hmm.
might be queries about a specific student. Try to answer all of that, and
Mm.
please don't desist. Don't give up so easily. It
Mm.
might take you more than a week.
Mm.
Be patient, please, and well, keep doing it until you land a student. You will see in time there will be one that will say, "Yes, I want to have lessons with you."
Yeah. Um, Funnily enough, I did one thing. Well, I've set up my Facebook page, but which kind of connects with my YouTube and social media, and Twitter, Instagram. And funnily enough, on Instagram, I was starting to post things about language or travel and culture. And a student that I used to teach at a private language school started following me, and she was from Colombia, and she sent me a personal message and say, can we have lessons? I'm preparing to start my studies at university in England, and I need some advice, some help. And it was just through Instagram, which seemed a bit weird for me, because I'm really from a generation where you go to the news agents or a corner shop, and then you post up your little poster for your
Yes.
to advertise your services. But it's all online now, so yeah, don't you know don't be worried too much about promoting yourself online. And I think one point that you mentioned about joining Facebook groups for language learning. So if it's English learning, join a Facebook group for that, or if it's Spanish learning, if you're teaching Spanish and that sort of thing, join a particular group, but contribute as much as you can before you start promoting or spamming your services. Because once you've found once you've become a member of that group, um, um, for about 2 weeks, then you can start to post up some tips, I guess, about um, the top 10 challenges or struggles of learning English, or the top 10, or two phrases to help you with your Spanish. And then people will start to engage with that, and then you can start to say, well, if you're interested, join my lessons, and I'll be happy to help. So it kind of hooks them in a way.
Yes, that's a great piece of advice, because if you start to promote yourself just by posting your
Mm,
profile, those posts are usually ignored.
mm,
But yeah, as you said, you're giving some sort of teasers,
yeah.
and well, that might increase the curiosity of people, and yeah, of course,
Right.
they will be feeling like they will have to learn.
Now, I've got another question here. I I have very little knowledge of the TOEFL test, and I guess it's a North American English test. Um,
Yes.
um, have you come across this test yourself?
Yes. Okay. Well, try to adhere to the rules they use while applying it, because and this also applies for lots of languages.
Mm,
Listening activities usually require 2 times to listen. They
hmm.
play an audio, and then they repeat it a second time. Write everything down, as much as possible, because sometimes listening activities will require your memory, and
Yeah.
and it might fail at some point because you're nervous, you're trying to pay
Mm,
attention on other things. So try to write everything down.
mm,
um, Go through a writing prompt by
hmm.
yourself. You can search on the internet lots of articles of newspapers and or magazines,
Mm,
or news outlets. Try to write sentences, or try to write a briefing with your own words about what you just what
mm,
you read. Sorry, and yeah, try to practice as much as possible. There are lots of websites that
mm.
have simulation TOEFL tests. You
Right.
can do some of them,
Okay.
and practice by yourself.
Wow.
Of course, it's good to have a tutor by your side
Hmm.
to guide you through this challenge, because the TOEFL is challenging, I might
Mm.
say. So you can do that. You can practice. Dedicate at least an hour a day,
Mm.
and I think that would be fine.
Yeah.
That would be enough.
Like I said, I have very limited knowledge about the TOEFL test. I know it's used for university entrance in North America, or, the United States, where
Yes.
it was. The IELTS has become multi faceted, so you can use the IELTS test for, getting into universities in the US now, and various other countries around the world. And the only time I came across the TOEFL test was when I was teaching in South Korea, because many South Korean students were preparing the TOEFL test and for the TOEFL test, and they have a particular score, and it's always a sort of a comparison between the score. And so, the same viewers asked, is IELTS better than TOEFL? And being British, I guess yes, the IELTS is better. But when it comes down to the listening, you only have one chance to listen with the IELTS.
Yes, exactly. That's what I found when I started to tutor.
Mm.
The IELTS only gives you one chance. It's one shot, so be careful about
Yeah.
that. And
Um,
well, if you're learning English, American English, well, it will be a little bit more difficult for you if you try
mm.
to understand British English. They
Mhm.
are, well, they have their differences, of course, starting by the way they pronounce words and phrases.
That's
But
true.
yeah, it should be all the same thing, though,
Yeah.
so don't
They're
worry
still
about that.
testing the same skills, aren't they?
Yes,
Right. Before we finish off, because um, time flies when you're having fun.
yes, exactly.
um, got a comment here. I was asked about the SAT test this week. I had to Google SAT tests as I didn't have a clue, and yeah, I completely sympathise with you, because for our American cousins across the pond. Um, I have no idea about the US education system. I've been brought up in the with a British education system. It's very different, I think, to some degrees. They talk about GPT or GPA. I can't remember, but a particular grade or level of your education attainments.
Yes, it's the test that people apply, that people do to apply for college or
Mhm.
universities.
Yeah.
And depend on their results, they might apply for AP, or advanced
Uh-huh.
programs, and that's teaching in the target language you're learning.
Mhm.
And yeah, there are several others. I don't remember right now, but
No.
yeah, it's to apply for college.
Right, I've got one final question here, and a nice question to finish off with. So, is there smart techniques that could be used for the management of teaching online at all?
Yes, calendars are especially useful for that because time management is very important.
Hmm.
If you don't do that, you will end up having six back-to-back lessons, and trust me, will be really tiring, and will be punishing for your back.
Mm,
So, what I suggest you is using calendars and manage your time off. It's
hmm.
important to do that from your calendar by
Yeah.
syncing it with your other accounts. If you have Google
Hmm.
Calendar, you can sync it
Yeah.
into your Preply account. And
Perfect.
well, you can use some online tools for that
Mm,
purpose, and tools that can be used to do a follow-up session with your students if you
hmm.
learned a specific topic or subject and you won't be memorizing everything, like, oh,
True.
what did I teach to this student?
Yeah.
Okay,
What did I do
yeah,
last
i
week?
have to i have to do I have to keep an agenda on that,
Mm,
and to resort to it, and so I can be aware of what do I have to teach this student the next session. What do we need to do? What do we need to review, etc.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you ever so much. Completely agree. Yeah. Chivalrous Tube says the university I'm applying to accepts a variety of different tests, even the Duolingo
The
test.
lingo, the owl, the stalking owl, right?
Mature student motivator says, thank you. Your channel inspired me. My pleasure. Thank you ever so much. All this work. I wouldn't be here without Marco, of course. So thank you ever so much for your contribution today, Marco. I really appreciate it.
Thanks to you for inviting me. I felt so delighted with this live stream, and well, it's a shame it's coming to an end, but yeah, I will look forward for your next live streams, of course.
Yeah, and for those that have joined, thank you ever so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. Live stream every Saturday at 1 p.m. same time, UK time, and it's kind of early in Mexico, so thank you ever so much, Marco, for joining at such an early hour.
Thanks to you. What a great day. What a great opportunity to start my day in this way.
Right. Well, thank you ever so much for everybody joining, as I mentioned earlier on. Again, for anyone that wants to join this live stream, feel free to reach out. It'll be great to have you join the live stream. Take care, everyone. I've got to go because I've got a class in a minute.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you again, Marco. Have a lovely weekend. Yes, it is Saturday. I almost forgot. Yeah, so have a lovely weekend. And
thanks to you, Martin, and have a great weekend too.
Yeah, take care. And everybody, goodbye. See you next week.
Thank you. Goodbye.